1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 through 12 is the passage we're going to be in today. Paul, Silvanus, and Timothy were writing a letter as they continue to minister to the people in Thessalonica. They're writing to these Thessalonians. And remember, part of the reason that they're writing is because they had to leave town. Or Paul specifically had to leave town because a mob had run him out of town. Not everybody was happy he was there. There were people that did not want the message of Christianity being spread. In Acts 17, we read about that. We're actually going to look at a little bit of Acts 18, just in quickly referencing later on. I think it's interesting how both those chapters tie into the book of 1 Thessalonians. But we're able to see the events that happened when Paul and Timothy had ministered to the people of Thessalonica. But in this section, we get further details about that ministry, and we also find out more about the relationship that Paul had with them while he was there. As we look at these details, we will be challenged with the importance of living godly lives and of ministering in a way that does not hinder the gospel. Some of you are probably sitting here thinking, wow, I'm glad Jerry's going to be preaching himself today, because he already gave the illustration earlier about this pastor who's not ministering in the right way. But I want to remind you that ministry is not just for pastors. I look out at this crowd and I see people who are ministering. Remember what that word minister really means? It means servant. How many of you serve other people? What I mean is, how many of you show kindness to others? Isn't that ministry? If kindness is shown in a sacrificial way, out of love for others, that is ministry. But as Christians, we ought to bring the wonderful good news of Jesus along with that kindness. We ought to be bringing the comfort of Scripture along with that kindness. I talked about that production, parables and proverbs that we saw this last week, and how the parables of Christ and the proverbs of Solomon, how they can give so much guidance in life. And when we can share those parables, that biblical truth with people, to just give them encouragement when they're feeling discouraged, or to give them guidance when they're trying to decide what they should do in life. That's ministry. So when I talk about being careful in your conduct as you do ministry, I'm not just talking to pastors. I'm talking to all Christians. Because we get to do loving things for other people. And we should be doing loving things for other people. Greatest command in the Bible is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, all your might. The second greatest command is to love your neighbor as yourself. Ministry is doing those two greatest commands. We ought to do them in a godly way. Let us not forget that Paul, Silas, Timothy, and the Thessalonians themselves had been involved in telling others about Jesus. They had been involved in ministry. Let's make sure that as we minister in a God-honoring manner that does not present a hurdle to people coming to Christ. Let us minister in a way that reflects our love for God and a love for each other. Let's bow for a word of prayer and then we'll dig into this passage. Dear Lord, I pray that you guide us. As we look at our lives, as we do what is right, as we're tempted to do what is wrong. Lord, help us to look to you, to remember to love you, to fear you, and to remember to love others as well. Lord, I thank you that we're not in this alone. Because I believe we each recognize how difficult it is sometimes to live a consistent Christian life like we ought to. And I thank you that